right, Ms. Dick, you may call your next.
At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Broughton. Mr. Broughton, you believe that children deserve to have stability in their home, correct?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that question.
I said, Mr. Broughton, you believe that children deserve to have stability in their home, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. Broughton, you believe that children deserve parents who are drug-free, correct?
Correct.
All right. And do you believe that a child's home should be free from domestic violence?
If there is domestic violence being perpetrated in the home, yes.
Objection, non-responsive.
Was responsive, Your Honor.
Overruled. Next question.
Mr. Broughton, can you state the name and ages of all of your children? And first name is fine.
Relevant. We're only here for one child.
Objection relevant.
Sustained.
I would just say that the number of children in his care and custody is relevant.
And I would
Well,
say the attorney didn't even
question
know how
as-
many children were.
Okay.
I didn't
I'd
hear
like
what you said.
I'd like to know how many children and what are their ages. I don't need to know their names.
In his care or period? Because the question was period.
Period.
So I have 3 boys. I have a 4-year-old, I have a 16-year-old, and I have a 1.5-year-old.
All right. And none of these children live with you, correct?
Correct.
Do you provide child support for any of these children?
I'm going to object to the relevance of these questions regarding any child who's not the subject matter of this case.
Sustained.
All right.
So, Mr. Oh, sorry. Withdrawn.
Why doesn't Jack live with you?
Objection called for speculation. Hearsay.
Now, is that the child in this case?
It is.
Okay. All right. So overruled. You may answer that question.
I feel like that's obvious. I feel like that's why we're here.
Answer the question.
Why doesn't he live with me? Because he's placed in a PCSP.
Okay. Do you believe that he's still in a PCSP?
Objection called for hearsay and speculation.
Overruled.
So the way it has been brought to or put to me, and I assume Lindsay as well, is that regardless, neither one of us could go pick him up, because if we did, then he would be moved from his placement into CPS's custody or what have you.
Based on the events of the last year and a half, do you believe it was in best interest to live with his placement?
Permanently?
No, just based on what has occurred over the last year and a half, do you believe that it was in best interest to live with his placement?
Objection called for speculation. He did not get to make these decisions.
Sustained.
Where are you currently living, Mr. Broughton?
In a house?
Are other people in the house?
Yes.
And how many other people are in the house?
Maybe 4 or 5, maybe less. I'm not sure. I don't normally count heads like that.
Are they relatives?
Object to relevance. No one's asking for the child to be placed with my client right now.
Overruled.
I mean, it depends on how you. I mean, because I have family that I'm not related to, so I mean, I don't know what answer to give you on that.
Okay, are you actually related to any of the individuals living in this house?
Object to ask and answer. Object to ask and
Overruled.
answer.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, Judge, just so you know, there's a delay. I'm not trying to be
Okay,
disrespectful.
I know you well enough, I think. And I think what I would need to know, are they blood relatives?
No, sir. No, sir, they're not.
Okay, all right, let's move on.
All right, where did you live before that?
I'm here in Cleveland with Lindsay
And what caused you to leave that residence?
because it was just in the best interest for both of us for that I leave.
Are those the only residences that you have had since this investigation started in June?
I mean, the only one that I needed, I didn't really need to have backup on backup as far as places to go.
So those are the only two residences that you have had since the investigation started in June?
Correct.
Asked and answered.
Okay, can you tell me your understanding of why the department has filed this case?
Object to asked and answered, and call for speculation has already been ruled upon.
Sustain.
Do you believe that Ms. Brown needs services before the child can be placed with her?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Can we
My-
explain
me
to
and-
him what services are? Because there's a litany of services.
Sustain.
All right, do you believe that Ms. Brown needs counseling services before the child is placed with her?
Object to specificity. What kind of counseling? We have so many.
Mental health counseling?
We have so many of those as well.
Okay, overruled. Mental health counseling.
I mean, from what I've been hearing over the last few court days,
Yes.
she's actually got her.
Broughton, yes or
Yeah.
no, or I no? Yes, no, or I don't know.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, do you believe that you would need services before your child should be placed with you?
Ask for
Not from-
clarification services, Judge.
Sustained.
Do you believe that you would need drug rehabilitation services before your child could be placed with you?
Objection calls for expert opinion and speculation.
Overruled.
No.
What changes have you made in your life that would make you a suitable and safe caregiver for this child?
Uh, so I don't really see where my parenting really needs to be called into question because neither Lindsay or I are bad parents or at any point ever were bad parents or there was never no cause for
Objection non-responsive. Mr. Brown, please just answer the
Sustained.
question very tightly.
Sustained. Next question.
Mr. Broughton, when was the last time you used methamphetamines?
unless I was sleeping. I don't know.
What was your answer again, Mr. Broughton?
I couldn't give it there because I have never used methamphetamine.
Were you asked to do hair follicle drug testing by the department?
Let me have a time frame, please.
Well, from the time frame, I believe it was August of 2022 to February of 2023.
Yes, and there was a ruling that I did not have to. In 2 courts, actually.
I want to object again, as we do in every hearing in this case, to revisiting the prior cases as they are not before us as to relevance.
Okay.
Have you been asked since then to take
Noted.
hair follicle
I'm sorry.
tests?
I'm sorry, I
Duly
didn't get a. Okay.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Have you been asked since this case started to take a hair follicle test?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Overruled by CPS.
By CPS.
Yes, originally, at the original start, whenever CPS took up the case, yes.
In June of 2023?
I couldn't give you an exact date.
What happened in June of 2023 that started this case?
Objection form and calls for speculation. He didn't make this decision. Someone else did.
Sustained.
Did Miss Brown threaten to hang herself?
I do not recall.
Were you and Miss Brown in a lengthy discussion or argument?
Object to time frame.
In June of
Lack of time frame.
2022, when this case started? 2023, sorry, when this case started?
I wouldn't say lengthy.
How long did it last?
Yeah, maybe 2.5 days.
But you wouldn't call that lengthy?
Objection asked and answered.
Why
This
wouldn't
day-
you call that lengthy?
I mean, people go longer having issues than 2 or 3 days.
And had the two of you gone longer before than 2 or 3 days?
Object to time frame, relevant for that reason.
Sustained as to relevance.
Since March of 2023, had you and Miss Brown gone longer than 2 or 3 days?
Same objection. That's irrelevant.
Overruled. You may answer that.
Can you tell me what happened in March of 2023 for there to be a lengthy dispute between me and Lindsay?
Objection non-responsive, but it shows that my client, his answer is I don't know.
Well, sustained as to non-responsive. Let's hear the question again. Answer only what you're being asked.
Yes, sir.
Okay, had you and Miss Brown gone longer than 2 or 3 days since March of 2023 in discussions
I do
or
not.
arguments?
I do not recall.
Have you ever engaged in domestic violence counseling?
I like a time frame. Objection.
Okay, let's break down the time.
Okay, since you've known Miss Brown, have you engaged in domestic violence counseling?
Another objection saying they've been together a
Well,
while, or they
I-
they are not together.
I don't know when they met or when they began their relationship, so I do need some more.
Okay, Mr. Broughton, when did you and Miss Brown begin dating or get together?
February, or no, it was November of 2021.
Okay, and since November of 2021, have you and Miss Brown ever gone longer than 2 or 3 days with discussions or arguments?
I'll again object to times that are not within the frame of his child even being born.
Okay.
Relevant.
Overruled.
John, that
Overruled. You may answer. I'm sorry.
no,
Well,
I'm
can you
sorry. I didn't
repeat?
realize you were about to speak. I was just going to say that the problem. That's why the department is reaching. They're looking for things that happened before, and just it's just a blanket objection. So I'm sorry. It's stale. It's old to me too, but so apologies.
So can I have the question repeated to me, please?
Okay,
You may.
since November of 2021, well, actually, since the birth of Jake, have you and Ms. Brown gone longer than 2 or 3 days in arguments or discussions?
No, we have not.
Okay. How long have you actually had Jack in your care and custody?
Well, for the first 6 months of his life, for sure.
Okay, so do you recall approximately the last time you had him in your care and custody?
I mean, for a lengthy, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding when
old is
exactly.
How old is Jack?
He's a year and a half.
Okay, so for the last year, he's not been in your care and custody, is that correct?
At times he was, but mostly no.
And when you say at times he was, what length of time was he in your care and custody?
3 or 4 days at a time.
Do you know when your family-based safety services case ended?
When the VCC was found by the judge in court, when was that, March?
Object to call for speculation. He clearly doesn't really know.
Okay.
Sustained.
And where was your child placed at that time?
At that time, he was placed with my cousin and his wife.
Okay. And that's where he is currently, correct?
I believe so.
So you had approximately 2 visitation periods before you returned him to Ms. Monso's home in June of 2023.
That sounds about right.
Okay. Where are you currently working?
It varies. I don't just work in one spot.
What type of work do you do?
That varies also.
Do you have a general type of work that you do? Contracting? Is
Jack
there,
of all trades. That's about the best I can sum it up for you.
you do what?
I'm a jack of all trades.
Okay, and do you travel on your job?
If it's necessary.
And are you able to, will you be able to pay child support to Ms. Brown?
Of course.
All right, so 20% of your net income you'll be able to pay to her?
Object to
mean,
call
I'm
for
not-
speculation. He just answered that his work varies, and he can't possibly know that absolutely for certain.
Sustained.
All right, and are you willing to pay Ms. Monso child support if she continues to care for your child?
If that's how it goes.
Are you willing to do any services at this time?
Not with CPS, no.
And do you have any type of health insurance?
Objection relevant.
Overruled.
Could you answer again, please?
But no, I don't.
Okay. What services did you participate in the last case?
Objection.
ones-
We are going right. It's relevant. We're going back to the past, which is what they need to do to make this case work for them.
Sustained.
What are your plans for visitation with your son?
So future plans, or what is my
Yes.
plan been all this time?
Future plans first.
Well, waiting to see how this works out first, and then depending on who ends up with custody with him, to arrange. I can't give you exact details on what my plans are because
Objection non-responsive.
I don't know.
Okay.
You want Jake to live with you?
That's two-sided. That's a two-sided answer right there. I can't do. I mean, every parent would love for their child to live with them, but
So objection, culture, speculation. I think he's answered plenty to say that he doesn't know. He doesn't know what the future holds.
Overruled.
I mean, every parent would love for their child to live with them, but I mean, given my situation, it's not in his best interest to be placed with me. I will say that
And why is that?
because I don't have a home of my own. I mean, I have a home that I stay, but it's not my home.
So there would not necessarily be a place for him in that home.
I mean, of course, definitely, but if he were to be, I don't know how to make it make sense. I don't know how to explain that to you anymore. There is a place for him where I stay, but I feel like he would be more comfortable either with his mother or with his Aunt Nikki.
When was the last time you visited with Jacob?
Before CPS got involved?
Just when was the last time you visited with him?
In June.
All right. No further questions. I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. Moore.
When you said it would be in his best interest to be placed with his mom, you aren't saying that you can't care for him, are you?
I'm not saying that I can't, no.
Right. And you're not saying that you don't want to, are you?
Exactly.
You're just saying that other things could come up, like if the landlord there doesn't allow him to stay,
Right.
or if it caused a problem with the other roommates and they didn't want him to stay,
Right.
or if you have to travel for work, where's he going to go?
Exactly.
So because of those circumstances, it would be best for him to go with his mom, right?
Correct.
Now, why haven't you visited since June?
Because CPS has failed to return communications with me as far as trying to set up visitations. Every attempt that I have made, I've been ignored.
I'm sorry?
The objection.
I didn't hear your objection, Ms. Dick.
Oh, I said objection hearsay. He's referring to what CPS was. He
Overruled.
I mean, I got text messages. I can.
That's okay. Hold on. That's okay. So you were saying that you attempted to try to set up visits with him, but CPS hasn't been responsive to you.
Right. I mean, they didn't tell me where he was whenever. They have been non-communicative with me all the way around.
Okay. Hold on. You haven't been in a relationship with Miss Brown for quite a while. Is that right? Since the summer?
Since the end of June, possibly the beginning of July.
From what you knew of her last year and from what you have heard about her situation throughout this hearing, do you see that she's made changes?
I see a massive improvement.
Okay. And what specifically do you see that has improved?
Well, for one, she still has her job. She still holds down the residence that we shared at one point in time, and she has a car of her own.
Okay. Now you heard her testify that when you guys were in a relationship that y'all had a really difficult time communicating because of silly small things. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe and agree with her that now that you're not in a relationship with her, that you can go forward and communicate about your son and not have kind of the petty who's going to bring the groceries in and who are you texting in the middle of the night conversations?
Right. Yeah. Communications have definitely have been simpler. Yes.
Okay. Now I know that you are not communicating with her regularly, but have y'all communicated some since June about your son?
Quite often.
Okay. So all the conversations that you've had since June have been about your son. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's not about you guys being together.
Correct.
And in fact, she's the only source of information that you have about how your son is doing. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am, this whole time.
Because CPS hasn't been responsive?
Exactly.
Okay. Do you believe that you and my client can work together on when and how it would be appropriate for you to see your son?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, you heard her testify that she would want you to pass a drug test before you were unsupervised with him. Do you remember her saying that?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you be willing to take a drug test at your own expense in order to be unsupervised with him and give her that test?
If I can afford it, yes.
Okay. And if you can't afford it or until the time that you can, would you be willing to allow her or someone else that you guys agree on to supervise your contact with your son?
Yes, ma'am.
And you understand that from her perspective, that's not trying to punish you. That's just trying to make sure that your son is safe, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've never done anything to hurt your son physically, have you?
Never.
You've never put him in any kind of a situation where he could be injured physically, have you?
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am, I never have, no.
Okay. And when you heard my client's testimony about when you guys would get in these arguments, that she would call friends or family to kind of come and pick him up so he wouldn't be in that environment. Is that true?
That was an agreement we made to each other, and we agreed upon before things started getting tense, or if we didn't think we could avoid, a heated debate or an argument, that we would have him take him somewhere else where he would be removed from the situation, so that way he did not experience any of the uncomfortable situation that we might have.
Okay. And I think I remember her saying in her testimony that you guys had that agreement. So when she would call somebody or when she would, go take him somewhere with you, it was that you guys in that moment realized, hey, look, this is going down the wrong road. Let's get him somewhere where he doesn't have to be around while we work it out. You would have that conversation in that moment?
Yes, ma'am.
And you believe that that's a good parenting decision to shield your child from those arguments, no matter how petty they may be.
Right. It said the child has no place in the grown folks' business or arguments or anything like that. They should never see that or hear that.
Are you ready for CPS to be out of your life?
I was ready for this from the moment they walked in the first time.
Okay. Do you believe that they right now are robbing your son of having an experience with his parents, specifically his mom, because that's where he would live, because of old stuff that happened a long time ago?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that's fair to your son?
That's not fair to anybody.
Do you think right now continuing this cycle, basically of just trying to dig up stuff from the past so that they can be involved, is in your son's best interest?
It's doing more harm than good.
Would it be in his best interest to have CPS out so that you and Miss Brown and him can continue on with your life?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did you see? No, you're on the phone. You can't see. Tell me what you know of Miss Brown's housekeeping. Does she keep a clean house? Is she a hoarder? Does she let it get cluttery and then do massive cleans once a week? How does that work?
The house stays clean. While I was there, there was dinner on the table every night. Junior always had food in the cabinets and in the fridge. There was always food, period, in the fridge and in the cabinets, and that wasn't by my doing. So, that says a lot.
She was a good mom and she's a good homemaker.
Right.
And you don't have any concerns for his safety in that home. You've been in that home, right?
Right.
So there's no exposed electrical or, insulation exposed or screws or nails sticking out of the wall. Nothing that would cause him an injury like that, is there?
I would go as far as there's plug covers in every plug that's not being used.
Okay. Do you believe that Nikki would be an appropriate babysitter while Miss Brown works?
Nikki has been a godsend, period.
Okay, so you don't have any concerns about Nikki babysitting on a regular basis?
No, none at all.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. Iverson.
Yes, sir. So apologies, my handwriting is so bad that when it's not today, my notes from what I wanted to ask my client, I'm not sure what I wrote. So please bear with me. Jacob, how long have you lived where you live now?
And since I left the house or trailer in Cleveland, so June, July.
Okay. And how long has it been since you resided with Miss Brown?
Since June or July.
Okay. And you're very clear that you guys are not going to get back together in terms of anything other than what you are now, which is co-parent, correct?
Correct.
I'm sorry, would you say that again? It was a little muffled.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay. And there was testimony in the last hearing, it's been a while, but about how there were concerns that you would still want to control her. I'd like to get your response on that. Do you have any intention of controlling her other than being protective of your son?
My response to this might be a silly one, but if I could control her, things wouldn't be the way they are right now.
Okay. But you are not trying to be controlling of Miss Brown,
no,
correct?
Not in the least.
Would you say that your role is to be supportive at this point?
Right. A parent and, a friend if she needs one.
And there was also testimony about you disappearing. From your end? What is that? When the caseworker says that you disappeared, what's your side of that story? To keep it short, please.
Well, if you return a phone call or a text message,
So you were
maybe
trying.
I wouldn't have disappeared. Yeah, I tried.
And as Ms. Moore went over, you have also been trying to get access to your child. And what is CPS's response then to your efforts to see your child?
What response?
Over and over again?
Yeah, no, there's been no response. I mean, it gets discouraging, and eventually you kind of just give up because you realize that they're not going to reply.
But have you ever actually given up?
I mean, of course not. I haven't given up. I mean, because I'm on the phone right now, still talking. Trying to clear all this so I can start seeing my son again.
So when we talk about the times that you guys were in not doing well, you said 2 to 2.5 days. What do you mean by that? Do you mean that you were just at each other's throats for 2 and 2.5, or do you mean like you were not happy with each other for 2.5 days, 3 days, like all couples would do? So
the first day was more at each other's throats. Second day, we were just more or less really unhappy with each other. Third day, it kind of died down. We still didn't really talk to each other, but there wasn't so much.
So you don't mean that you were at it for 2 to 2.5 days. You mean like you just weren't happy with each other for about that long. Like you're processing the anger.
Right.
Okay. And was Junior ever present during any actual aggression?
Absolutely not. Not even any exchange, like verbal arguments or anything like that.
Right. And let me back up. Was there ever any physical violence between the two of you, or was it just arguing?
I'm more scared of her than she is of me.
Okay, so let's answer the question. Was there ever any physical violence, or were you guys just arguing?
No. It was just really passionate arguing.
Okay. So, if the baby were be returned to Miss Brown, do you know that he would be safe?
I have no doubt.
Do you know that she would be protective and that she answer that question first, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Does she have a good support system?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you asking that the court do exactly that today? Send the baby home to his mom?
Please.
I'll pass witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. McGee.
Just briefly, Mr. Barton, I know we kind of got into this, but I don't know if I ever understood clearly. But if your son is returned back to Ms. Brown, where do you anticipate exercising your visits?
Wherever that Lindsay deems suitable or fitting, wherever she feels more comfortable.
Okay. So you're willing to just abide by whatever terms and provisions Ms. Brown recommends for the visitation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I believe that you stated that your place isn't suitable right now, so you don't anticipate at this time having any overnight visits with him at the place that you're living?
Not at this moment. I haven't really inquired or made plans for that now.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dick. Back to you.
No questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from anyone for Mr. Broughton?
I have one.
All right.
Mr. Broughton, this is not going to be an easy question. Okay. You heard my client testify that when you guys have been angry with each other, you've said things that you didn't mean. Do you remember her saying that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that true?
Yes, ma'am. It has happened.
Okay. And you actually, do you recall calling in a CPS case and saying that Miss Brown had been using drugs?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
In a time that you were mad at her, right?
Right.
Was it true when you said it?
I was ill-informed. I did not know what really was going on.
Okay.
It was more of an assumption.
Okay. So you just assumed she was using drugs when you were mad at her, during or after an argument, and you called that into CPS. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've heard that she gave a urine test that was negative and that she's since also given a hair follicle that's negative, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you mistaking her being upset during the argument that you guys were having as maybe that she might have been using drugs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you look back on that, you realize that it's probably not the best decision to do that unless you know for sure, right?
Right.
Okay. But that's what happened in this case. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am.
And you told CPS that, didn't you?
That was the first thing I said to him when we sat down, and I was under the impression they were interviewing her. I was trying to clear all that up so that way we didn't end up right here.
Okay. And they actually, in the documents that they gave you, including the affidavit, they admitted that you told them that you called that report in and that it was a misunderstanding.
Right.
Okay. Pass witness.
I thank you. Any other questions from anyone for Mr. Broughton? All right, thank you. Ms. Dick, you may call your next.
At this time, I'd like to call Nikki Monso. Have you and your husband had Jacob minor care in custody?
I would say since he was 6 months old, so he's 18 months now. So.
Okay. And when did you and your husband originally get him?
I don't remember the dates. Last year sometimes, I think.
Okay. And do you recall how that occurred?
Objection
Yeah.
to the extent that it called for hearsay. I would assume she was told everything.
Let me hear the question again, Ms. Dick, please.
I just said, how did it occur that she and her husband got Jacob Michael?
All right, overruled.
Am I supposed to answer?
You may answer, yes.
Okay. I don't know how this works. I'm nervous. I'm sorry.
You're okay.
I have a friend of the family that knew Lindsay and asked if we would be willing to help her out. And so we did. And then CPS contacted me and that's how we got him.
Okay. At the end of the first family-based safety services case, what was your understanding of how the transition would occur of returning the child to the parents?
After they did the classes that they were asked to do, if everything went well, they were supposed to get them back.
Okay. And how did the transition begin? Or do you recall when it began?
Like whenever we were starting to give him back, it was like in the summer, like over the summer.
Okay.
For a couple weeks.
It was just a couple of weeks in the summer?
Yes, ma'am.
So it would have been in June or May?
I want to say May, maybe the end of May. I didn't write dates down, so I don't know exactly the time frames.
And how long did Jacob go home the first time?
I think it was like 5 days, maybe. And we kept in touch, and then I got him back for a few days, and then he went back for a few days.
Okay. And did everything go smoothly at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
When was he returned to the parents permanently?
Permanently, he wasn't. We were doing the transition stuff, and then they were doing that, and then that's whenever the new case had got open, like right after.
Okay. And how did the new case, or how did he get back to you that third time?
Lindsay had just called me and said that she needed to bring him back because they were in a argument, and so I was like, okay, that's fine, and then she brought him back to me.
Okay. And during that time, did the parents visit?
No, not whenever. No, not because I was talking to CPS and I'd wanted them to do like visits through like them, like not here.
Why did you want the visits to be elsewhere?
Just because I wanted to just stay to myself with it, because it was a lot of drama between the two of them, and I didn't want to be involved in it because I needed to be like mentally, capable of taking care of the child, the baby, not worrying about what them two were going through,
And how did you know about the drama?
Because they were texting me, and it was a lot. So
Okay. At any point, did you want them to do some counseling or services?
Yes, ma'am. At the beginning, I asked for, when we had that meeting with CPS, I'd asked for them that I felt like they maybe needed some family counseling, like between the two of them counseling.
Can I get a time frame about a meeting and
Time frame?
You recall the time frame of that meeting? Was it like a family team meeting?
Yes, ma'am. It was like a family team meeting. Yes, ma'am. It was like at the very beginning of this new case.
okay.
Okay. And so once the visitation started at CPS, how did they go?
I mean, they were going good on. I mean, the lady was picking them up, and then they were meeting with CPS.
Okay. And had the father ever contacted you to find out what was happening with visitation?
No, he had stopped contacting me because I asked them. I guess somebody told him to stop contacting me. I don't know. So no, I have not talked to him.
And was that just related to the text messaging that was going back?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And at that point in time, what did you want to have happen?
With what? Like with
the placement and just everything?
I'm
I
going
was
to
hoping
object to relevance of what she wants to happen in a case that doesn't involve her.
Overruled.
And I'd also object to speculation. I'm not. Why would she know all the options? She wouldn't have reason to know the options.
Overruled. You may answer.
I was just hoping that they would figure everything out and then, be able to get their son back.
Okay.
If placement with the mother or father or both breaks down again, what do you want to have happen?
If it happens again, I would hope that they would contact me.
To speculation as to something that hasn't happened yet, and her knowing how she would respond depending on circumstances we don't know.
Sustained.
And it
Ms. Monso, wait for the next question, please.
Okay.
Like you're doing.
all right. And sorry, it's taking me a minute.
That's fine.
And do you believe that you can continue to be a support system to the mother and father as they move forward with the transition, whatever transition that might be?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think is in the best interest?
I'm going to object, Judge, that she doesn't have the required expertise to speak to what's in the best interest of this child.
Well, the child's been with her a year. Overruled.
Uh, okay. I mean, I still hope that they've been doing good, so I still hope that they can get him back and like we can continue to. I still want to be a part of his life, and I hope they let me. Like that's about.
So have you formed a relationship with both the parents?
Yes, more so Lindsay. Yes, ma'am.
And do you feel that has she been calling you, or are y'all still in contact at this point?
Yes, ma'am.
And Ms. Monceau, is it your husband who's a cousin to the father, Mr. Broughton?
Yes. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
And how has Jacob progressed over the last year?
Objection called for speculation. Oh, I'm sorry, for junior or senior? If it's junior, I was lost.
Okay, it was junior, right?
It was definitely
Okay.
junior.
Okay,
Okay, sorry
Right.
about that. Sorry about that.
very good. You may answer, Ms. Monceau. How has the baby progressed
Progressed.
since he's been with you?
I mean, he's doing fine. I don't know how to answer that. I'm nervous.
You're fine.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, just when we say progressed, I think we kind of think of it in terms of is he meeting his milestones? Has he had any development issues that have needed to be addressed?
He is in like ECI for like he was for like walking, but he's good on that. He's just been a little bit like I don't even know if you would say slower because every kid goes at their own pace, but now he's in it for like speech therapy just to get him to start saying like a little bit of words because he doesn't really say anything.
No other questions at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from anyone for Mr. Broughton? Anyone? I'm sorry, for Ms. Monceau.
Yes.
Yes, you may.
When he was doing those 5 days with his parents, and then he would come back to your house for a few and then go back.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
were on him consistently during that time. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So would you call and FaceTime daily to check on him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you inspect him when he got home to make sure he didn't have any marks or bruises?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And
ma'am.
there were no issues, were there?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever see either of these parents and believe that or have an inclination like that Miss Brown, for instance, had been under the influence?
I've never seen it. No, ma'am.
If you believed her to be under the influence, you would not have let her in your house, would you?
No.
And you certainly would not have let her take Junior, would you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. When you wanted the visits to be moved elsewhere, that's when they started happening at the CPS office. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In the time that you have seen my client with Junior, would you agree with me that he's bonded to her?
Mm-hmm.
And he's happy to see her?
Yes, ma'am.
Does she interact with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it appropriate?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it loving?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any issues with the care that you have seen her provide for him?
No, ma'am.
Okay. She's also provided things for him. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So clothes, diapers, food, formula, and even his bed. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Car seat.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else I'm missing? Toys?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So these things are things that she does continually, not like just a one-time drop off.
Yes,
ma'am. When he is returned home to her at whatever time that is, are you willing to be childcare for her so that she can work during the day?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If you ever believed that there was an issue when she brought him for you to watch for the day, would you call CPS and let them know?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you love this baby, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe it's in this baby's best interest to be raised by his parents?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If there was ever a situation where my client felt like maybe she was really sad and emotional and couldn't kind of come out of it, and she wanted you to watch him for a couple of days, would you be willing to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
If there was ever a situation that she felt like she didn't want him exposed to something, maybe she is having an argument with his dad about a visit, would you be willing to watch him while that happened?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. Iverson.
Yes, sir. So this is going to be a blatant sidebar, but I don't think anyone will object to it. Ms. Nikki, I'm sorry that you're nervous. You are not on the hot seat here. Everybody here, to a person, appreciates so much what you have done for this baby. And so I just want to say thank you. And that I can't say it better than that. Just thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. McGee.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. So, Ms. Monson, that night, I'm assuming it was night in June when Ms. Brown brought Jacob Jr. back to you. Did Jacob Jr. seem like he had been harmed in any way at the time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, no bruises or anything.
No, ma'am.
Was he appropriately dressed that night?
Yes, ma'am. He was
Okay. I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, I said he was in his pajamas.
Okay. And Ms. Brown was pretty open with you. It's just what did she say to you that night or why she needed to bring him?
She just said that they were in an argument and that she felt that he needed to be with me. And I was like, that's fine. And then brought him to me.
All right. And she felt comfortable sharing that with you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Nobody told her to bring Jacob Jr. to you. She decided that on her own.
Yeah.
Did y'all come up with the plan that night or how long he would stay, or just indefinitely until she felt it was appropriate for him to come back?
Yeah, we didn't. It was just whenever she felt, it was ready. We didn't talk about like a plan, but I mean, she didn't. It would have just been whenever she felt like he was safe to go home.
And how far apart do you and Ms. Brown live from each other? Do you know?
She lives in Cleveland and I live in Porter, so 30 minutes, I guess.
And Ms. Monson, what would be your concern if Jacob Jr. were to go back home and live with his mother?
I mean, I don't have any right at this moment, as long as, I mean, they're not together. And I mean, I don't know. Everything's fine, I feel like.
You felt like that the biggest concern recently, since you have been involved, was the tension between them as a couple?
This time, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dick. Back to you.
Okay. Ms. Monson, do you consider yourself an accurate evaluator of whether or not someone is under the influence?
Objection calls for speculation, expert opinion. She asked these questions herself, and now she's questioning the witness about her ability to answer the question that she asked herself.
Sustained.
No other questions.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from anyone for Ms. Monson? All right, may this witness be excused. Ms. Monson, thank you for your time and your patience and your assistance in the matter today. And in fact, very much for all you've done for Jacob Jr. For most of his life. We're going to excuse you.
Okay.
And thank you.
Thank y'all.
I have a question for the mother.
All right, there we go. You may.
Okay, Ms. Brown, have you ever indicated that you believe that Mr. Broughton contributed to your drug use?
Can I get a time frame?
Objection for relevance calls for speculation and time frame.
Well, overruled except as to the time frame. Let me have a time frame.
Fall of 2022.
Objection, relevance.
It's within just a few months of her relapsing.
It was a year ago, Judge. And they're not together.
The relapse was less than a year ago.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection. You may answer that question. Do you need it asked again?
Yes, please.
Okay, I think I might too. Go ahead.
Okay, have you ever indicated to anyone that you believe that Mr. Broughton contributed to your drug use?
Not with any seriousness or not out of just being mad about something.
So you're saying that if you blamed him, you were just angry with him?
Yes.
So would you say you've taken responsibility for your actions in terms of relapsing?
Yes, ma'am.
And how have you done that?
I mean, my choices and my decisions are mine and mine alone, and it's not fair for me to blame other people.
No further questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
No questions.
Thank you, Ms. Iverson.
No, sir.
Thank you, Ms. McGee.
No question, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Any other witnesses? Ms. Dick.
No, thank you.
All right. Does the department rest?
The department rests at this time,
Okay. Thank you.
other than if I need to call any rebuttal witnesses.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Do you rest?
I rest, with the exception of rebuttal.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Iverson.
Same.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. McGee, do you still want to call Ms. Mays?
Yes, Judge, very briefly.
I bet she is ready. Ms. Mays,
Judge.
thank you.
Ms. Mays, very quickly, in your petition, you're asking for Ms. Brown to submit to a psychological or a psychiatric evaluation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Where would the department be asking her to submit to the psychiatric evaluation?
Miss McGee, that would go through family base. I'm not for sure who they use, so I'm not for sure what facility they use for that.
Okay. Okay. And I believe we heard from Ms. Bynum, if this case were to go back to FBSS, that she would possibly be the caseworker.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one question.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Dick.
Okay, and Ms. Mays, you're muted.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Mays, is it also possible for the mother to go to her own, to choose her own provider and to ask if the department pay for it at the rates that the department would normally pay for such a service?
Yes, ma'am. If we are affiliated with
Objection,
the service
non-responsive.
provider.
After yes.
Sustained after yes.
What was the objection? I'm sorry.
Non-responsive.
Okay. So does the department have the flexibility of allowing a client to choose their own provider for the service?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Okay, no further questions.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone for Ms. Mays?
Yes. Ms. Mays, have you been here as the representative for the entirety of this hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
All the days? I don't even remember how many there have been.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're aware that she already did a psychological evaluation in the last case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you talk about that you said that she could pick her own person, and the department would pay them at the department's rate. Would you agree with me that the department's rate is a discounted rate?
I'm not for sure of the rate, Ms. Moore, because when it transfers over to FBSS, we're not involved. So I'm not for sure what the rate is or anything.
You can't guarantee that the department is going to pay the rate that an individual, a different provider, a psychiatrist or a psychologist is going to charge her, can you?
I can't answer that. No, ma'am.
Pass the witness.
All right. I believe I went away. My apologies. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. So the last thing I heard was Ms. May's response in terms of she's not exactly sure of the rate.
Okay. My next question was, you can't guarantee that the department will pay the provider that she chooses the full rate that provider is charging for that service.
No, I can't answer that. No, ma'am.
Pass the witness.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone for Ms. Mays?
No.
Your Honor.
Okay. And okay, the case closure exhibit that is mother's, is that, let's see, 4?
Oh, that was 6. I withdrew it.
6? I don't think you withdrew the closure letter.
Oh, the letter is 5. The one from Ms. Bynum?
Yes.
That was 5.
Okay.
That one I did not withdraw.
All right. Okay. So can you put that back up?
Yes.
Without too much trouble? I remember behavioral solutions, and I don't remember if number 1 was her own provider or Tri-County. Oh yeah, it was Tri-County. Okay.
Can I stop?
You may. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or witnesses, Ms. McGee?
No, Your Honor, and I rest.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Everyone ready for brief closings? Do you need a quick break? Are we ready to go right into brief?
Is it possible for me to, I would like to ask Ms. Mays just one more question.
You may. You may.
Okay. Ms. Mays,
Yes, ma'am.
what are the concerns that the department has regarding this child?
This child
Objection
is,
asked and answered multiple times.
Well, I'm going to overrule. I'm going to allow it.
there's concerns with prior drug use. Sorry, I do apologize.
Right.
There's concerns with prior drug use, mom's mental health, concerns with domestic violence. This baby is under the age of 5. He's unable to self-protect, so he solely relies on his mom and dad for all of his needs and wants. So we just want to continue to ensure that mom and dad are sober, they're mentally able to take care of the baby, that there's no domestic violence. I know they're separated and they're not together anymore.
Objection
that they would be
non-responsive at this point.
Overruled. You may continue.
that they would be
An
able to,
objection calls for narrative.
Well, overruled for now. You may answer. You may finish your answer.
that they would be able to co-parent and still be able to provide safety for this baby.
Thank you.
All right. Closing statements, Ms. Dick, and let me say that the court is largely and primarily concerned with what has happened during this investigation, and not a whole lot before March of this year, in terms of whether during that time frame abuse or neglect has occurred, whether there is a substantial risk of either occurring, or whether there is a continuing danger to the physical health or safety of the child because of some act of a parent, and to demonstrate that there is that this family needs services, as it were, in order for the child to be safe. So with that, Ms. Dick, you may begin, or you may defer.
I'd like to defer to the end if I could.
All right, very good. Ms. Moore?
Yes, Judge, let me get my video back. I think that it's been pretty clear throughout this entire case that the department's focus has been on old stuff, because that's all they have is old stuff. The person who knows these individuals the best, and the person who has seen these individuals together with their child or separately with their child the most, is Miss Monceau, and she has no concerns. My client's been appropriate. You've heard from multiple witnesses how clean and appropriate her home is. You saw those pictures. You haven't heard evidence that there has been any abuse or neglect to this child. In fact, my client took the child to Nikki's house to avoid abuse or neglect happening to the child when she was in an argument with the child's father. You've also had no evidence that there is a substantial risk to this child if the child is returned home. If you'll recall Ms. Monceau's testimony, the only thing that she asked for was, at the beginning of this case, was counseling between my client and Mr. Broughton. They're not even a couple anymore. They're not together. He has a different place to live. That's unnecessary at this point. FBSS refused this case. The department put in their affidavit and they testified that the only reason this case is before you is to force FBSS to take the case. FBSS even said they don't have any other services to offer because Ms. Brown did them all. So I don't believe that they've met their burden. I believe that the evidence has shown that my client has been safe. My client has been appropriate. My client has protected this child, and she will continue to do so. And I would ask you to dismiss the suit.
All right, Ms. Moore, thank you. Ms. Iverson?
Well, Judge, I feel like this is my theme lately, but I'm going to just say me too. But I echo everything she said. Be redundant.
All right, Ms. Iverson, thank you. Ms. McGee?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So, Judge, while I appreciate the efforts and the attention that the department has given this child and this family, I do believe that they've offered them the best that they have already, Judge. And so I don't think that they've met their burden, especially with anything since March of 2023. They've closed their case, and I think everybody is concerned about what happened in January. However, the department still closed their case 2 months later and offered her these resources, Tri-County and Behavioral Health Solutions, which she has still gone to since March, and they haven't really been able to offer her anything else. And I think that is the best that CPS can offer her, Judge. I hope that she does look into some other mental health services, but I just don't know if CPS is the place for her to go. Honestly, Judge, I think that they've given her all that they have. I understand that the department has these concerns. I believe they said the prior drug use. Well, we know that she's clean now, Judge. So I don't see how that is a continuing danger. She's past the hair follicle. The domestic violence seems to not be an issue anymore either. I think it's pretty clear that they, Ms. Brown and Mr. Broughton, are no longer in a dating relationship. Again, is her mental health an issue? Is it a concern? Maybe, Judge, we don't know, but I don't know if there's anything that we can connect her mental health as far as a danger to the child since March, or even before, really, Judge. I think it says a lot, and which has been very pressing on me, is that Ms. Brown took it upon herself in June to take her child out of a situation to make sure that her baby was safe. And I think that's what we hope for after a parent goes through services, to know, to be able to assess the danger and make sure that the child is safe. And I think that says a lot to me as far as whether or not she could be protected going forward, even if she has a relapse or has another emotional breakdown. I think it's clear that she does have support, some people who will be checking in on her. Ms. Monso and Ms. Wade both are there. It sounds like Ms. Brown is open with Ms. Monso and feels comfortable sharing these vulnerable situations, because she didn't have to do that in June. So that is encouraging to me, Judge, that this child would be safe if he is returned to his mother. And I just don't see how the department has met its burden today, Judge. So I would recommend that their request be denied.
Right, Ms. McGee, thank you. Ms. Dick?
Your Honor, I think that, there are red flags all over this case, and there were indications through the evidence that there's long-term drug use, that there are, long-term mental health issues, that domestic violence, although details of physical violence did not come out in evidence, there was a concern by the mother that she needed to get that child out of that home. And that was an urgent concern, and she did so. But this child is under the age of 5 years old. The caregivers, or the primary caregiver, would not necessarily have the ability to assess sobriety. And as the department, we are trying to address these red flags that clearly came up in this case. And it's not unusual that the parents don't want to address them. It's not unusual that the parents don't want to cooperate. They've shown that throughout the case that has gone on. And that's why this child has been in Ms. Monso's care for a year. So I think that we have met our burden. We have, and maybe people don't want to go back, but when you see the patterns that can exist in the lives of these two parents, you cannot ignore them in terms of the actual safety and welfare of this child. So I would simply ask that the court look at the whole picture and order the mother to complete the services that were supposed to occur, as well as the father. He has consistently refused to complete services. He starts them, but it's that completion. There are parents who've had 6 months with their child, and that's it. And there's a reason for that. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Dick, thank you. Ms. Brown, the court believes, and this might be one of those rare and too infrequent cases or situations where you, as the mother, have taken better care of your child than you've taken of yourself. That's in all likelihood not sustainable. You're going to have to continue to take care of your child, as the court believes you have, but also take care of Jacob Jr.'s mother. That's you. You have an unusually strong support system. People that the evidence has shown, stand ready to help at a phone call. And in fact, some who have done so and who have done so, like Ms. Monceau and her husband, for more than a year. That does bring me assurance and confidence. You have told me today, and to some extent on the 16th of October, what you intend to do. Got a new car, go to AANA, have Medicare, Medicaid, go to counseling. I think the things that you have intended to do, I hope that it just wasn't for trial or for effect or for show. I think those intentions that you say you have, those intentions should guide you. You should go ahead and follow through and actually do those things. And you and your child and your family will be better and stronger for it. I believe, if you haven't already, that you and Mr. Broughton need to go to the Office of the Attorney General and get some orders in place if you haven't done that at this point. Now, the law requires that I deny the petition unless there is sufficient evidence that one of the aforementioned elements have occurred. And as you know, the statute, attorneys, is conjunctive. At this time, based on the evidence, the court simply cannot find that there is significant evidence to frankly prove any of the elements in this case. So for that reason, the department's petition is denied hereby. Mom, as far as I'm concerned, you can speak to your attorney, but there's nothing stopping you from getting your child this afternoon. And I trust that you will do that in concert with Ms. Monceau. That's the order of the court. The court finds it in the child's best interest. So, Ms. Brown and Mr. Broughton, please take care. Please grow up and put your child first. Get on the same page. And you certainly don't have to be in a relationship to do that. Please take care. We hope you won't need us any further. We will be here though, but our plates are full, but please take care. And so you are excused. Anything else from anyone else?
I would like to tell my client to please call me when she hangs up.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear that? Okay. All right. I want to thank all of you attorneys, especially for your long and hard and excellent zealous work on this case. So thank you one and all. Thank you one and all. Okay. If there's not anything else, we will stand adjourned, and we will see you all in Liberty County on November the 3rd at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Judge.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. You all are
Thank you,
excused.
everyone.
Have a good evening.